Good afternoon, dear conference participants. Let me present to you the result of our research on the topic identification of the number of birds collisions with turbines in the territory of Pre-Azov region wind park using the root census method. The intense development of wind energy has a certain impact on the environmental situation, especially noticeable in cases where wind power plants are located in places where bird communities are concentrated. The negative impact of wind turbines on ornithofauna is of global concern. Only in the territory of the wind power plant in the United States, 128,000 birds and 0.5 to 1.6 million bats die annually. Most of the operated on the used and projected wind power plants in Ukraine is located on the Azov and Black Sea coasts. Migratory birds complexes of the Azov-Black Sea ecological corridor are characterized by a great diversity in species composition in Eastern Europe, which are protected by the Bonn Convention. Therefore, the study of transcontinental migration flows is extremely important for assessing possible negative impact of wind power plants on the behavior of birds in the territory of wind power plants. The methodology for the anticipation of the number of bird collisions with wind turbines is described in the recommendations of the Scottish Natural Heritage Foundation, method SNH. The recommendation of the Scottish Natural Heritage Foundation provide for monitoring at several stationary sites belonging to the wind power plants. The size of the selected sites, as a rule, doesn't exceed 10 to 20% of the total area of the wind park. An alternative way to obtain information in the route accounting method, RAM, adapted by Siokhin and Gorlov in relation to collection data necessary to anticipate the impact of wind power plants on the environmental situation. The root census method allows collecting information on the behavior of birds from almost the entire territory of the wind power plant. Therefore, in this scientific work, this method is used as a main one. The aim of the research work is to anticipate the interactions of birds with the turbines on the Primorsk 1 VPP based on the analysis of the result of monitoring the territory of the Primorsk 1 wind park, which was carried out in 2018 using the method RAM. To achieve the aim, the following objectives were formulated: identification of birds, design of a mathematical model for anticipating birds, anticipation of the number of birds. The monitoring time was chosen so as to cover all periods of birds' life: winter period, spring migration season, nesting period, autumn migration season. Route accounting scheme to the Google map for the northeastern part of the territory wind park is shown in Figure 1. An example of the monitoring results is presented in Table 1. The probability of a collision of a bird of the G species with turbine blades when it is flying through the danger zone of a wind park in the formula on the slide. Then the number of their collisions with the turbine blades is identified by the formula. It can be shown that the number of collisions of birds of G species with turbine blades is identified by the formula on the slide. An information system has been created for data birds too. The program code is compiled on the basis of Windows Forms technology in the Microsoft Visual Studio Community 2019 software environment. The main database contains 48 fields reflecting the results of monitoring of birds' behavior in the wind park and processing the initial data. Date, year, month, and day of observation. NO number corresponding to the entry on the Google map. T duration of observation in hours for the selected observation day. Species birds belonging to a definite species. Number of birds. Type of migration, the way of birds' movements and their presence on the observation site, transit, forage, nesting. Altitude, m, flight altitude in m. Speed, bird's flight speed in kilometers per hour. U, km, coordinates of the bird registration point on the Google map on the abscissa axis in km. V, km, coordinates of the bird registration point on the Google map along the ordinate in km. The total number of registered birds was 8,927 specimens of 72 species, of which 802 specimens of 11 species were on the transit type, 2,511 specimens of 32 were of the forage type, 5,614 specimens of 60 species were of the ground terrestrial type. The quantitative characteristics of birds of various types according to the season are given in Table 2. The number of collisions during 1 year of WPP functioning calculated by the formula 7 for the collision probability PG equals 0.19. Taking into account the data in Table 4 equals 4.1 for the spring and 3.3 for the autumn migration season. The total number of collisions was 7.4. The BIRDS2 information system has been developed to ensure the analysis of information based on the results of monitoring the wind park's territory using the root census method. The program code is compiled on the basis of Windows Forms technology in the Microsoft Visual Studio Community 2019 software environment. The main database contains 48 files reflecting the results of monitoring of birds' behavior in the wind park and processing the initial data, year, month, and day of observation, an identifier that binds coordinates of the registered birds to the point on the Google map, time of observation day, observation duration for the selected observation day, bird species, number of birds of this species, type of movement, and presence of birds in the observation site, flight altitude, flight speed, direction of flight, coordinates of a point of registration of birds on a Google map, and other parameters. A mathematical model has been developed for analyzing the interaction of birds with turbines using the results of monitoring the territory of wind power plants using the root census method. In this risk zone of birds' interaction with turbines, 4 birds of the same species Buteo were registered. The probability of a single bird's collision when passing through the wind wheel is about 0.19.